As we mentioned in the first segment, the Syracuse family lost a patriarch in a lot of ways, a guy who helped build that football program for sustained success through the 80s and the 90s, plenty of the 2000 years as well, before going on to the NFL to coach with the New England Patriots. And then I think a lot of our listeners closer probably remember Coach Mack from his radio broadcast.
Oh, yes.
With the voice of the Orange, Matt Park, and Coach Mack always brought that coaching passion to the broadcast booth, and certainly nobody remembers him or has better stories to tell about Coach Mack than the voice of the Orange, and that is Matt Park. He joins us here on Big Board Sports and 104.5 The Team, ESPN Radio. Matt, really appreciate you taking the time. Chris Honorato and Brian Mariano with you here. Our condolences to you and the rest of the Orange family. I know Coach Mack, of course, you worked alongside him. He had become a great friend to you, and I saw your comments on Twitter yesterday. What can you tell us? What will you remember most about Dick Macpherson?
Just his heart, and thanks, guys, for having me on, because it's a sad time, but would love the opportunity to talk about Mack. He made just a tremendous impact on so many people, and I'm in the back of the line, after his players and the assistant coaches that worked most closely with him. But some of the things that are coming out now with his passing yesterday really, I think, paint the picture of what he was. He was a person who really considered everyone else above and beyond him. He was always sort of last in line in terms of comfort and looked out for everybody, always asking, what can he do to make somebody else's life better and remember them and make them feel special. He could work a room like nobody else. Absolute study to walk around with him to see how he interacted with people, and we'll miss him in so many ways, and I'm sure it'll set in later just in our daily passing, the kind of the lessons that we've learned from Coach Mack, and it's a shame that we won't be able to see him at the games anymore.
Matt, you can lend better perspective to this than the simple things we're reading online about the undefeated season in 1987, and obviously the decade of success Coach Mack had at Syracuse. But what was his lasting impact on that program? One that I know is still trying to get it turned around here, but the success he had in the 80s that obviously then set it up so well for the 90s.
I think going about it the right way, class, playing hard. If you look at the 1987 team, those guys were all, there were a lot of good athletes on that team, but they were all kind of picked over. They just missed being at Penn State or Notre Dame or what have you. And they came at Syracuse and they improved. They worked as a team. They played hard. They were tough. And I think he defined what Syracuse football was going to be. And Coach Pasqualoni, who, then benefited from, a lot of legitimately great talents like Marvin Harrison, et cetera, was able to keep that rolling through the 90s. But the basis was, we're going to play the game the right way. We're going to go to class. We're going to treat people right. We're going to embrace, what's good about college football. We're going to have fun. God damn it, God love you, and just that kind of attitude. We just put out a video this morning, and unfortunately, there's just not enough footage, from back then, because TV cameras didn't go in the locker room like they do now as often. But his remarks to the team after beating Nebraska, which is either the best or second best win in his entire career, let's give them credit in the post-game press conference. We beat a good team. We haven't earned anything yet. If you remember, Syracuse lost to Rutgers the next week, so it wasn't like they'd, arrived, so to speak. But and his comments are, God love them, God love us, and it just respected everybody, and a million stories to back that up. But that's what we'll miss most about him.
Matt, Coach, not only, with Syracuse being such, having a great fan base like they do, and a lot of people follow the football and basketball religiously, but Coach was so much more impactful, not only on the football team, but in the town. There was even talks about him running for mayor. Talk about his impact on the city of Syracuse itself.
Yeah, why bother running for mayor? I mean, he was the mayor, without having to put a sign in his yard or to go through the grief of actually being mayor, and I was just a kid when he was actually to coach, in 1987. I was 12 years old in 1987. So I wasn't at those parties at his house after the game, but I hear, Sandra pretty much opened the doors to all comers. And this is a small blue-collar town, and I'm sure there are hundreds of people that have a story about, I ran into Mack at the grocery store. I saw him at church. He went to daily mass, so he was pretty accessible in that way. He had a bar when he came back in the early 90s after coaching the Patriots. I don't think it was anything more than just putting his name on it. He wasn't Sam Malone. But there was a bar in the Hotel Syracuse called Coach Mack's, and he'd be seen in there, and it just kind of, I think, presented the fact that he was open to everybody. I know in just our travels with him and walking around, every secretary, every, clerk, and a parking attendant, he treated everyone like they were a really important person, and not himself. It wasn't, he had no problem posing for pictures and stuff, but he didn't have an ego about it, and he, I think, just had an unbelievable knack for brightening people's day and going out of his way to think about, what can I do to boost somebody else.
The voice of the Orange, Matt Park, with us here on 104.5 The Team ESPN Radio. Chris Honorato and Brian Mariano in for Roger all week. All right, Matt, as an Irish and an Italian, and I know you'll do plenty of this on Thursday and the days following, but as an Irish and an Italian at a funeral, at a wake, whatever it may be, it's the funny stories that always seem to come back to us, and I'm sure that applies to most everybody. Give us something really memorable from Coach Mack along your travels in the broadcast booth with him.
Well, it's funny because there's just there's just so many little things. Like, I don't think I've got one story that's going to have you, rolling on the floor of the studio, but just funny little quips. You're Irish and Italian, you'll get this. So we're traveling. This is in the Greg Robinson was the last coach to continue to bring a chaplain on the road. Coach Mack, you remember Father Borgognoni was always in the camera shot, behind
right.
the team bench. So I forget what road trip it is, but we're getting on the plane after the game, and the priest gets on the plane wearing the all-black outfit with the white collar.
Yeah.
Like, what else would he be wearing as he's traveling? And Coach Mack, just in his deadpan way, "Nice outfit, Father." And that always came off as a funny thing. Like, and there's so many one-liners that all of us who love Coach Mack use. Isn't it something? God damn it, whatever it might be, just kind of a quick quip to bring a smile. A lot of them are flashing back this week. There was a time when, I forget what happened, we were on the road, I want to say Connecticut, and Mack had the parking pass. We gave it to him to put in his portfolio because he's in the passenger seat. He's going to flash it or whatever when we're going through. And we get to where the gate's 100 yards ahead. We pull off the side. Matt can't find it. We tear apart the car looking for this parking pass, or they're not going to let us into the lot at Connecticut. And we can't find it. We removed every piece of equipment. We're looking under the seat. Finally, we say, screw it, Mack, you're just going to have to talk our way in. So he sweet talks the attendant of the parking lot. They let us in. We're still flabbergasted. Where the hell did this parking pass go? It's an hour later. We're in the press box. He opens up the portfolio, to get his game notes out. It was right there the whole time. His outgoing cell phone message forever was, let me see if I can work this thing and I'll get back to you. But one story that I was thinking too that I remember from our early days working together. We went out to the state fair, and he and I were supposed to sign autographs at the state fair. Well, it didn't take much time. As soon as we got out of the car, I realized this is going to be Mack signing autographs at the state fair, and I'm just sitting there. So the people are lined up at the table in the Time Warner booth, and I said, well, my job will be I'll get the person's name, I'll write it on there, to Jonathan, and Mack will sign it and charm him. So we had this great routine going, and I'm telling you, every person, I would say, well, what's your name? Mark. All right, and I'd write out to Mark. And then, where are you from, Mark? Liverpool, and he would write on there, "Go Warriors," and sign it. You know, the high school nickname.
Yep.
Or he would say, "Oh, is that ice cream place still there?" Or, and that was without fail, no matter what town they said across the state. You know, and just heart of gold, and they don't make them like him anymore.
He's 86 years old, survived by his wife, Sandra, 2 daughters, 4 grandchildren who, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, one is on Dino Baber's staff as a grad assistant, is he not? I mean, this is through and through. This continues to be just kind of a family tradition, Syracuse football.
That's right, and you know, he was so proud of all the grandkids. You know, the boys were the ones that we got to see. They were ball boys on the field from the time they could walk, you know, for Coach Pasqualoni and going right up through. And then we watched them grow and develop, and both of them played for Syracuse. Both of them are, you know, high academic achievers, basically academic All-Americans. Cam was a 4.0 student for 2 years running. Just tremendous representatives of him. He had to have been so proud of all of those kids, and I'm sure he probably tried to talk them into something different, but they, you know, Cam's going to be president someday, but Mackey, you know, has gone into coaching, and I'm sure is kind of like his grandfather, an undersized scrapper, coaches offensive line, played offensive line, was a captain here, and you know, that's a perfect image to carry on his legacy. Awesome.
You can find Matt Park, and I absolutely encourage you to do it on Twitter at MattPark1. The things that you've tweeted out over the last less than 24 hours here, Matt, some great remembrances of Coach Mack. And I don't have to tell Syracuse fans that he probably should have had a Heisman Trophy winner in 1987. That's a discussion for a whole nother day, with a quarterback of the same last name just missing an A in there, Don Macpherson. Matt, really appreciate you taking the time with us this morning. I know it'll be a difficult week, but you've got some great stories, certainly to lift the spirits of people who are missing Coach Mack.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know everybody's kind of thinking the same, and I didn't think quickly enough last night because we had kind of a late night gathering to put a video together, but I hope everybody enjoyed the first, sipped the second, refused the third in his honor, and you know, raise one to Coach Mack, and I know he's looking down on everybody with a smile today.
Love that. Thank you, Matt, for the time, man. We appreciate it, and our condolences to you and everyone in that Orange family. We'll catch up soon, Matt.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.